Have you been hard stuck in Atom 2 for the last 4 seasons and have not been able to rank up because of either crap teammates, your game sense, or just, your aim not being the best? And if that's the case, in this video I'm going to give you tips and ways to improve that I used to go from Atom to Neutron in 1 month, and now Electron 5 last season. And I've been playing Strinova since season 1, so I have got a lot of things that I picked up on myself and other players have done in my games. So without further ado, let's get into it. Aiming in this game is almost pretty much the most important thing in the game, and it is with, it is pretty obvious. It is literally the only reason you're going to win most of your games. But if you cannot aim when someone is at least, at the very least standing still, you're just not going to get very far in the game. And especially, you're going to want to be able to be decently good at tracking players in midair as well. And you're just not going to get very far in the rank ladder. But obviously, if you're not very adept at aiming, there are ways to go around it. And the very first easy one is just playing the game. And I would say that playing Strinova itself is a great help just by playing unranked. Unranked games will help you grasp what players will do, in certain situations. Obviously, whether that being stringifying when they're reloading, sticking to walls to try and juke you out, and obviously jumping off walls to shoot you. You're going to get a lot better at aiming and kind of predicting where they're going to be. And you also, if you want to do it the real nerdy way, in my opinion, you could get aim training maps or Steam like Aim Labs to properly practice training your aim, but I know that most people don't want to do that, like myself. So another good way to get good at aiming is just by playing other shooter games. See, I, realistically myself, didn't really have a problem with aiming in Strinova, as I've played loads of shooters in the past whatever years. So, I have a bit of experience with aiming already in other games. And yeah, obviously, it's pretty good. Valorant's a good example. It's just a first-person game that's similar to Strinova and, relies on you having some great aim to hit headshots. Obviously, CSGO's another one as well, and there's a lot of other games. Obviously, every character in Strinova has its own, gun, so it has its own recoil pattern, so just go into the range on Strinova and just keep shooting until you can kind of keep it from moving away from the target, too much. Getting your own crosshair is also a great idea as well, and you should probably have already done that by now if you haven't already. You can have a look online for good crosshairs, or you can just mess around with the settings to make your own, and obviously mine's on the screen right now if you want to see mine as well, if you want to use mine, but mine's a pretty bog standard, pretty small crosshair. And obviously, this will help you with getting better with just the aiming, and so much more, than anything else. It is probably the most important thing in the game to actually get better at, is the aiming. And yeah, pretty much do everything I have said already before, and I would also say that if you have toggle aim on, I'd also turn that straight off as well, because that's just another thing that would be holding you back with gameplay, especially, you don't want to be toggling your aim, because you obviously, the best way of explaining it is you don't want to be toggling your aim, because you toggle your aim mid-fight, you have to keep clicking to actually, stop aiming, so it's a lot better just, having it on, actually just on hold. Because if you want to left shift aim, you want to shoulder aim, if you want to use your, aim down scope, it's going to be a lot easier. Movement is one thing I'd also learn almost immediately to get better as well, and there are ways to do it to make it easier, get around the map. Learning movement, first of all, you can use the wall stick keybind instead of just jumping onto the wall to stick to them. It's a pretty basic thing, but if you don't do this already, I would do that, and, I'd recommend using E to probably immediately stick to the walls. It's just a lot better, and obviously, turning on auto stick might also help you out in game. It's a great idea as well. You can make some nice plays using the walls as well, especially if you have a sniper, pretty much any gun, you can make some cool plays just by going on the wall and just jumping off it, Using the 3D and obviously the 2D movement to your advantage is a must-have, because, you're going to get better. You're going to get so much better using the actual stringifying as well. And obviously, you take less damage when you stringify. Plus, it just, makes it more difficult to hit you. So when you see the enemy wasting bullets on you, just stringify, and then, even when reloading, use stringify as well. And obviously, there's times where you shouldn't do this, such as when you're in a 1v1 and you can kill him with the health you have. Obviously, peeking around corners with the views, also a good strategy, instead of just peeking it, that's never gonna work, especially if there's a sniper aiming. You're better off just using the third person view you have to your advantage. It's gonna be so much easier, and you're gonna play a lot better realistically. I would say that learning all the grenades as well is a great idea for Strinova. Obviously there's a lot of different grenades, that they all do different things, so I'd probably recommend just going into the practice arena, just testing them all out, because they all do different things. They all kind of work in different ways, such as obviously the windstorms are great for post plant, as you can obviously throw them onto the bomb, stopping people from obviously defusing for a few seconds. And obviously, that's a pretty good one. Obviously, frag grenades, they're good for finishing people off. You know, they all have their own kind of uses. Obviously, tattletale as well, another one that's pretty good for putting it behind you. You know, flank. That's not a bad one as well. Although I don't use that one as much myself personally, but you know, they all have their own uses, and obviously knowing what they do is a very good thing to have. And will also help you get a lot better. Getting at least one person to play with you. Just even a duo queue, it doesn't really have to be 5 people, because realistically, you ain't gonna get 5 people that want to lose their minds on this game, unless you've actually like got that lucky. Because realistically, I'm not in that boat. I will have about maybe at most 2 people playing with me. So yeah. Try and at least get a duo queue. I think, you know, it sounds crazy, but it will make you play a lot better. Obviously, you're playing with a friend. You know, you're gonna be having a lot more fun as well. So you can obviously, that's also gonna lead into you actually playing a lot better as well. You know, let's be real. Solo queue is not fun, and it's kind of an obvious like fact at this point that solo queuing in any game is never gonna get you anywhere. You're cooked basically if you're solo queue, so just try and at least get one person you can play with, you know, not all the time, but just, you know, regularly. Learning the abilities is another thing you want to be doing while you're obviously playing the game, and obviously it will allow you to kind of get to know what everybody can do in the game. Obviously you can just learn them all just as you go. I mean, that's kind of how I did it for me. I just played the game, just kept playing it until I learned them all slowly, because it will eventually happen, you know. You don't have to do it the exact way that I'm going to show you, but that's just the way I did it. I mean, you know, there's multiple different ways to learn it. You can go into the range, try every character out. You can even literally load into a game and, you know, try individual characters as you unlock them. Because obviously you've got to unlock each character, you know, unless you've already got them all. So yeah, I would say that definitely learning the abilities is a great one. You know, such as if obviously if you have a Chio on the other team and you get scanned by her, you kind of know that she's going to use the ult. So you can either, you know, run, obviously stay there, wait for the ult, then dip. And, you know, there's a lot of things like that that would be very useful to know, especially if you're going to play ranked as well. You can escape situations and stuff like that. And it's very helpful to know, as you will have, obviously, knowledge of all the characters and overall, you know, even the awakenings, actually, as well. You know, Fuchsia's Awakening 2 is really good. You know, I mean, by now, most people should already know that, you know, if she has that awakening, it's going to make, you know, she's going to pick herself back up if she gets downed. They're all pretty good, to be honest, the awakenings. But that's another thing as well, is obviously, you know, playing as the characters at least once and just seeing what they all do, kind of thing. You know, because there's obviously a lot of awakenings. If you were to combine it ultimately over every character, there's a lot of ults, abilities, awakenings. You know, you gotta kind of like figure out what they all do, because obviously once you figure that out, you'll be a lot better when you actually get in game, to be honest. Obviously your vets, both awakenings are pretty good, and obviously situational based as well. So realistically, if you whatever character you're playing, just have a look at what they do. Just read them. You know, I've said this 20 times, but just read them and just pick which one you think will be good for that situation. Whatever game you play, whatever map you're on, you know, they are all dependent on a lot of different things, I would say. You know, obviously some characters do have awakenings and not, you know, that are very much like one-sided, in my opinion. I would say that you would want to pick that awakening over the other one majority of the time. But, you know, for the most part, you want to kind of you kind of just want to take in a ton of information, just slowly. And I think that's another great bit of knowledge you should know about the game, which will make you a lot better. Obviously, another thing would be Audrey, obviously, you know, not having to reload, or maybe even Raichi with his semi-transparent wall as well. Like, that's another thing as well. Obviously, you don't know until, you know, you've actually had a look at what they all do. Also, you know, obviously, the mini abilities you can get, obviously, for all your guns and whatnot, and obviously your stringify, damage reduction and whatnot, all of them abilities. You know, I would say that they're all basically player dependent. They're all whether or not you want that specific thing. I mean, I like having spread control on some guns, and then some guns I like having recoil control. It's all really different, in my opinion, from every character. And I would say that, you know, just pick what you know, if you pick at least what you like, or what you think, you know, you can improve on. Say you're bad at recoil, you could get the recoil one, and then, you know, you'll be a little bit better at aiming with that gun. You know, another thing would be, for the most part, I say, the shields as well. Some characters are probably better off having the heavy shield, some characters are better off having the light. They all kind of are just dependent character-wise, you know. And obviously sound cues is another thing, and obviously, you know, we ain't gonna be jinxy over here, like, we ain't got the craziest, you know, audio, like, thing in the world, but in this game, sounds are a big thing. And I obviously wanted to get into this because having a good idea of the sounds in the game is also, a good thing. It'll actually help you get a lot better. And obviously, there's some sounds that you are gonna hear, but they're very quiet, such as like when you just if you string a file onto a wall and you can just hear them slowly move. That's really quiet sometimes, or at least that's what I've noticed from me. And, if you hear that, very good information, because obviously you're going to know which site they could potentially go in, where they actually are. This is all stuff like that, you never know. Like, sounds like that, very, very good for the game. And obviously will help you reach higher ranks as well. Being able to kind of tell what players are, acting on that sound as well is a good skill to have in the game. If you have a good headset, you could try using surround sound as well. But realistically, I'd probably turn that feature off and just use the surround sound from your actual app, because it's a lot better than the surround sound in game from what I've seen. And yeah, obviously it would just help a lot more with this, just focusing more on the sounds of the game. But that's a kind of like not too much of one. It won't make you too crazy. It's just another good thing to look out for when you're playing a game. But yeah, if you're having problems with smurfs in games or any bad teammates, the only things that are really going to help with that are kind of getting a team to play. Because realistically, I've made like quite a different amount of videos on different types of games on this channel. Obviously, Rocket League was a big one as well. And a lot of the people on that video, on some of the videos I made on Rocket League, was on about the Smurfs. The same thing's going to happen for this game. I'm imagining, realistically, we're going to have about 20 comments probably saying about Smurfs. The only thing I can say is just get a team to play with you, because you're going to need 5 people that are actually, competent realistically. If you have one bad teammate on your team, from a random, it's not going to look too good if you have a smurf. Like, let's just be real. You kind of I feel like if you want to get past the smurf, the whole smurfing spiel, just get a 5-stack, because that's the only way you're going to, sort that out. Obviously, queue times, there's no fix for that, so don't even bother trying it. That's just a tangent I'm not going to get on. But yeah, and obviously just improving at the game just to get away from smurfs as well. As long as you improve at the game, you're bound to get better at the game. And obviously bound to reach a higher rank. There's not really much I can really help with, though, with smurfs. As we kind of know, most of them are aren't gonna get banned, sorry. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say in the video. If you enjoyed, be sure to comment down below whether or not it actually helped you, and actually subscribe as well, as it kind of helps me out a lot. And if you have any other questions, I will be sure to answer them down in the comments down below. And yeah, guys, I will see you guys for another video next week, potentially. I mean, I'm kind of back now, kind of not, hopefully we'll see. But yeah, boys, I will see you guys next week for another video, hopefully. And yeah, bye bye.